Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be having a look at another new supporter. Happy Supporter Day. And it's Ingo and Emmett. Now, this is interesting to me, because Ingo is a lovely man in the Pokemon community with whom I have worked on a number of occasions. He's a lovely dude. And Emmett is... Now, I'm from Cornwall, down in the southwest of England. And Emmett is the word we use to describe people who aren't from Cornwall. So, an example of this might be, oh, I'm going to have to reverse down this windy lane because the Emmett I've just run into can't reverse 10 yards down the road. Things of that nature. So I'm not a fan of Emmett as a concept, but this card I am actually quite a fan of. Now, it is a supporter card, and it has been translated by the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com. And it reads, look at the top card of your deck and return it. Then choose one of the following. Discard your hand and draw 5 cards. Discard your hand and draw the bottom 5 cards of your deck. So you can either draw the top 5 or bottom 5 cards of your deck, but you can look at the top card of your deck before you go about doing so. And this is really, really interesting to me. Now, as for looking at the top card of your deck, I mean, this one's fairly simple. It gives you a little bit of extra information with which to make the decision. And let's be clear, right, it's not a lot of information. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're in a Zoroark deck. And you need that double colourless energy. You are craving that double colourless energy. You look at the top card of your deck. Oh, it's a double colourless. We're fine. We can draw it from the top. Otherwise, we'll draw it from the bottom. Now, like I've said, you're drawing 5 cards. You're looking at one of them. The reality is, it's not going to be terribly often that you actually gain that much information from this. It's lovely, but it's not always going to happen, unfortunately. Now, in terms of discarding and drawing 5 cards, this is essentially our spiritual successor to Professor Sycamore. We lost Professor Sycamore in the rotation. That was the discard your hand, draw 7, and I would often describe it as the fastest, most aggressive supporter card that we have. But because it totally was. This is not the same. This is only drawing 5 cards, and I gave the example in the video we did very recently, the one about Evelyn. An extra card is good. So, one of the best examples, Tate and Liza sees a little bit of play from a few people. Cynthia sees it's a 4 in every deck. It's phenomenal. It's a great card. There's a 1 card difference. If you want a 2 card difference, have a look at Judge. No one's playing Judge really as a draw supporter. Judge is a disruption supporter. You give your opponent a smaller hand. You really, in this situation, do not want to play a Judge rather than a Cynthia as draw power, and the idea of doing so is frankly a little bit ridiculous. So this is not draw like Professor Sycamore was draw. It is significantly worse. But actually, it's still draw. It might not be as good as Professor Sycamore, but it is still discard your hand and draw. If you really want a double colourless energy, you are still more likely to draw it with this than with Cynthia, depending on how many cards you've got in your hand. So if you've got a hand of 4, Cynthia shuffles those 4 in, and then you draw 6. Whereas if you've got a hand of 4, then Ingo and Emmett discards all 4 and draws a new 5. Now, when I say more likely, it depends on how many cards are left in your deck, how many cards are in your hand, etc. But a lot of the time, just discarding your hand and drawing 5 is going to serve you better than shuffling your hand and drawing 6. It's decent draw. But this really comes in those games where you want to discard cards. And we've got a couple of Pokemon around at the moment that are all in favour of discarding cards. So we've got Malamar. Let's show you the promo image today. It's a really nice card. It's nice artwork. And that accelerates psychic energy from the discard to your benched Pokemon. And we got Naganadel coming in Lost Thunder. And yes, it was number 1 in my top 10 cards of Lost Thunder. I'll pop a link in the description. And what that allows you to do is attach an energy, any basic energy, from your discard to Naganadel during your turn. which is really, really handy in terms of, well, just getting energy on the field, so then moving it over to something like a Tapu Koko or using a Quagsire to move it over to any water Pokemon, etc. It's a great card. They want to discard. But then again, when we're looking at supporters, this is pretty much always what we do. Look to see if it looks good, and then look to see if there are better options. Because actually, we've got Sightseer coming in Lost Thunder. And what Sightseer allowed you to do is draw until you got 5 cards in hand, but before drawing, you can discard as many cards from your hand as you like. And in a lot of ways, this will be better. This gets the energy in the discard for something like Malamar without having to discard other cards that you want. If you're playing a stage 2, let's go Mamoswine, because Mamoswine's my boy, you really want that rare candy and that Mamoswine in hand at the same time. So if you've got a rare candy in hand, but you don't have the Mamoswine, you can discard 4 cards with Sightseer, and then draw 4 more, rather than discarding all of them with Ingo and Emmett, and then hoping you draw both the rare candy and the Mamoswine. And bearing in mind, right, if you're discarding a rare candy, that means there's 1 fewer in your deck, 1 fewer that you can draw, so you're actually less likely to then get it. So actually here, it's not ideal, ladies and gentlemen. It's decent, but I think for a lot of decks, I'd rather have Sightseer. And Sightseer is seeing a lot of play in Japan at the moment. It is seeing a huge amount of play. It is one of the staple cards, especially in decks that are playing things like Malamar, like Naganadel. And if you want to just discard your hand and draw 5 cards, you can do that with Sightseer. But Ingo and Emmett has that second facet, and that is drawing cards from the bottom of your deck, and that's what really sets it apart here. And I'm hoping at this point many of you are thinking, ooh, a Rangaroo. Because a Rangaroo has seen quite a lot of play in quite a lot of decks, and it's got the attack resource management. For 1 colourless energy on a basic Pokemon, making it a very techable attack. Put 3 cards from your discard pile to the bottom of your deck in any order. That, ladies and gentlemen, is very good, especially in a format where we've lost special charge, so there's no real way of getting special energy back, unless you're using a GX attack on something like a Bayonet. In a format where Puzzle of Time has gone and we don't have universal recovery, this is wonderful. The problem is they're on the bottom of your deck, they're not shuffled in, so you're not that likely to draw them. It can be a pain to actually get those cards back. You can recover 3 double colourless energy, yay! But now you need to actually get them back. And up till now, we've kind of had Looker, which draws 3 cards from the bottom of your deck, which does combo really nicely with a Rangaroo. But Looker is only good when you've used resource management. Otherwise, it's no better than How, and How is not a good supporter. How do I know that? Because it's not seeing played in a whole bunch of decks. Whereas Ingo and Emmett here, you can just draw 5 cards. Now you have to discard your hand, sometimes you're not going to want to, but that was the case with Professor Sycamore, right? At least you can here. And what I love about this, it's great with a Rangaroo, but it's also just decent draw in the early game. It's not usually as good as Cynthia, because you get 5 cards rather than 6, but then again, if you really want to dig through your deck aggressively and not shuffle cards you don't want to draw back into your deck, this could be better. I mean, there's no really widely played cards at the moment that do this. Please correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. But in Expanded, you got stuff like Gallade that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. And one of the things that's super depressing when you play Gallade is if you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and none of them are gonna help you. Well, if that happens here, and if you know that the top card of your deck are rubbish, this comes in very, very handily indeed. There's a lot of uses for this. I mean, the other card I want to point out here is Zeb Striker. That's the stage 1 coming in Lost Thunder that lets you discard your hand and draw 4 cards. It's quite nice. I mean, especially as a once per turn ability, it's really, 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 really good. But I do like Ingo and Emmett. As a draw card, it is slightly underpowered. It's not a phenomenal draw card. But in the context of I can grab from the top or the bottom, so now stuff like a Rangaroo, yeah, I love it. I'm giving it 4 Wassies. I don't think it's one of those supporter cards you just chuck in every deck like Cynthia, but I do think it is a supporter card that is going to be the preferred choice, or at least one of them, in a whole bunch of decks. So in that context, I'm all in favour. But I'd like to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, so do let me know in the comment section, please. Go nuts, but I would politely ask that you be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about other card games like Dragon Ball, Transformers, Keyforge. It's fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.